Oh, they did it again. They definitely did it again, guys. Man, we got to jump into this one. Really excited to check this one out, guys. I have a prototype coming via the Lefty Pass Around group. Shout out to Kevin. Thank you, sir, for letting us check this one out. This is an absolute banger. We're going to be looking at the Vosteed prototype, because I can't remember how to say the name. I think it's called the Ankylo. Let me pull up my Kickstarter information real quick just to make sure. Ankylo. How did I forget that? The Vosteed Ankylo. We're starting this off strong, let me tell you. What we're going to be doing today when we look at this Ankylo, we're going to do some size comparisons, a tiny little bit of cutting. That's not going to tell you a lot, though, on the prototype, if I'm honest. And then we'll jump into thoughts and impressions. Let's go ahead and kick it off with the Spyderco Para 3 Lightweight, very comparable to your Rat 2, and your Spyderco Shaman, very comparable to your Rat 1, guys. I consider this to be more of a medium-sized EDC, a tiny bit smaller than the Shaman, but a tiny bit bigger than the Para 3. That's where I come up with medium for me on my channel. Being that it is medium-sized, I am going to use the full-size knives for the comparison, though. Let's go ahead and bring out a medium budget-sized EDC, and that's going to be the Devo Knives Growler V2, and we'll bring out the full-sized Civivi Amorite, and as I'm thinking through it, actually we'll use the Shaman, and we'll use the Growler V2 for those profile comparisons. But as you can see, this to me favors more of that medium style EDC for sure. Let's go ahead and close her up and just take a look against the Shaman here, which is going to be the thicker of the two that we're doing the comparisons against. And you can see the Ankylo just a little bit thicker. Not terrible, just a tiny bit thicker. And it's all right, because I feel like that kind of reminds me of the old Miguron Moriarl. And as you can see here, it's definitely noticeably thicker than the Growler V2. This one's a little bit more slender with those contoured scales. These have that flat scales. As far as how it carries in the pocket, it's going to be right in between these two guys, so it's not going to be much more as far as thickness, as far as depth, and then it looks like it might be potentially a little bit thinner. Yeah, just a little bit thinner than both of these in the pocket for sure. So let's go ahead and move these two out of the way and grab the scale and check the weight out. With these full aluminum scales, does it have steel liners? Yeah, it's got some steel liners in there. Feels like it's got a little weight to it. Oh, wow. Almost 5. That is surprising. I was thinking it was going to be like about 4 ounces. It's almost a full ounce heavier than what I was anticipating on here. So it definitely has a little bit of weight to it. Again, this is the prototype, guys. So I don't know if that means that's what's going to translate to the actual production version. Let's just kick it down to the garage. Very light cutting. I'm more interested on the ergos on this one. So as you can see there, it performed pretty well considering this is a prototype. It still has the LMAX steel labeled on here. So assuming this is the LMAX, that is very nice and slicey. Got a nice geometry and edge to it, great blade shape to it. So it looks like it's performing very well. But again, this is the prototype. I don't know if they've, settled for certain on the edge angle, geometry, etc. on here. That could all change as with a prototype. As I mentioned just a minute ago before we jump into ergos, you do have what looks like full steel liners, and I'm thinking that is what is probably needed here, guys, for this locking mechanism. So that probably has a little bit to do with the weight. Maybe by the time they get it to production, they'll be able to shave off a little bit there. The first thing I want to jump into before I go into or the next thing, because that was the first was the liners. The next thing I want to jump into before we go too far down the rabbit hole here is pointing out that I do not like the way Vosteed does their pocket clips. This is like a hang up for me. It's not a deal breaker, but I'm really getting frustrated with their pocket clip, guys. Pull this up. If you want this lanyard hole to be here, reposition it so that this is the end line, and then use the the one that you see like on CJRB where it has the hole in it and it's just sandwiched underneath the scales. That would actually be much more acceptable. I just don't it the pocket clip works right and it functions and it doesn't leave a ton out. Like it doesn't leave a ton of knife out and it functions really well. I just feel like, you know, using this last standoff bolt as your top screw for your pocket clip and bringing it up and tightening it in makes it nicer and it gets it out of the middle of the scale. Why is that important? Because when you go to hold the knife, this is landing like right in the meat of the handle. I checked this just to see, and if it was on the back end, I almost can't feel that. So from an ergonomic perspective, it functions so much better, guys. So much better if you back that pocket clip up. It's back out here. The part that's coming up is not in the meat of the hand. It's more on this flat part, skinny part of the hand. It feels so much nicer, guys, back here where that would normally land. So normally, what I'm pointing out here is if it's back here, I don't feel it. When I'm actually holding it here for the cut, it is digging a little bit. Is it super uncomfortable? Is it obnoxiously irritating? Absolutely not. I'm just asking because aesthetically, I think it looks more pleasing, and ergonomically, I think it feels a little bit nicer in the hand. Beyond that, I really like everything else about it. The frag is very well chamfered down here, so when you're holding that, you don't have any of the frag digging into the hand. You don't have it digging into any of the fingers on the inside here while you're holding the knife. I'm able to comfortably get 4 fingers on here. The landing pad is very nice for the index. Middle finger goes into the cutout nicely, and then my pinky and ring finger have plenty of space back here. If I wanted to do any sort of chopping, I can actually choke back and barely hang off the back of the knife. I wouldn't probably see myself doing any chopping with this one. It is a pass around. I'm not going to do any sort of lock test with this one, but I after handling this, I already went in on the Kickstarter to save a little bit of money because I like this. I'm very interested in this lock. I want to be able to take it apart. I'd like to report longevity, how I feel like having the knife for a long period of time, how this is all going to work. So I did go ahead and order, but now having handled the prototype, I'm actually very excited about it. Outside of the pocket clip, like the pocket clip's like my one pain point, but we won't get into that here. How does the lock function? The lock functions very nicely. I don't find that I land on it at all. Left-handed, I am sitting on it, but I'm not able to engage it or disengage it, I should say, to cause any sort of rock or play or anything that has me concerned about anything with that particular lock. It does stand slightly proud, guys, and you do have to push it. You got to give it a good amount of force to push it in, and then it feels like that initial bite is just enough space for it to start to engage. It doesn't feel like with that little bit of bite there anything's happening. It still feels pretty locked up solid. It's not until you get that in there pretty good that it's disengaged. And let's just see, we'll do a little. Okay, it's starting to, there we go. So once you get some resistance in there, like here, nothing. A little bit more. Nothing. There we go. Now we're starting to get to the point. So that's about there. Oh, that's not a good angle. Let's try that again. So about there is where you start to get that disengagement. So about a little less than halfway gets it disengaged. And it almost looks like it steps. Did you see that? Yeah, you got to get it past halfway for it to unlock. So the first, let's call it quarter, gets it to start to disengage, and then past half gets it the rest of the way, and then fully depressed makes it just a guillotine. It just absolutely drops. Detent feels really good too. Very satisfying. I slipped off of it every time I go to demonstrate it. Anyway, detent. Can you feel it? You can. You got to want it though. You got to want to fail it. Like you got to know to pop off of the opening hole in order to fail it. And I don't know if this has been disassembled, reassembled, um, how it's been tightened, loosened, etc. So, and it's the prototype. So keep that all in mind when you get this feedback from me about can you fail it. Feels good on the front. I would say if you go into production, tighten up the jimping and wrap it around one, kind of like what you have on that flipper tab. If you can take what you have on that flipper tab and throw that onto the front, yeah, that would work. And then just wrap it around one notch there. I think that would work. Stop pin's way back here. Stop pin. Trying to figure out to show you where that's landing on that sharpening choil. It's pretty far back. Pretty far back. Oops, sorry, there you go. So the sharpening choil, the blade's edge is like right there. And then your stop pin's way back here. So it's almost, yeah, right there. You can see it landing right where the plunge grind comes down. You can see the mark right there. So way back off the blade's edge. Good job. Good job. That's awesome. The action, it just feels like it kind of mirrors like you would on a traditional button lock, but it's a pivot lock. I don't know, strength wise, it feels, button locks have come a long ways, guys. Button locks have come a long ways. Some are still bad, but a lot are really, really good, especially when you look at Civivi and Syncut. Kaiser's come a long ways too, but the way it feels actuating it reminds me of what you've experienced with the button lock. What I do like about this pivot lock system though, it cleans it up a little bit. So you don't have this random button on the scale anymore. It's now kind of hidden and integrated into that pivot lock system, which is really cool. I like that a lot. Yeah, Civivi's just really dialed. Civivi's just really dialed it in, guys. This feels good. The sounds are really interesting. The Deaton's good. Maybe just a little bit more aggressive on that jimping. Maybe flatten that out just a little bit if you could. Can you? Nah, they contoured it to match it here. I see what they did. Yeah, they really can't. Maybe just a little bit more aggressive jimping at production, if possible. Man, listen to those sounds. I gotta shut up. Let me shut up. That front flip and that thumb flick on here are really good. Yeah, just Civivi, Civivi Syncut, they have really figured out this button lock system. Yeah. Anyway, easy recommendation. I would recommend you go over to the Kickstarter and get started with the Kickstarter. It'll save you $10. I will link that in the comment down below. I do have an affiliate with that, so if you use it, it helps. If you're going to pick it up anyway and you want to save $10, this is definitely an easy recommendation. I believe the way that it works is you back it, then when they hit pledge, they send you a survey, and then you pick the colorway, etc. that you want. Pattern, I don't know if they're going to have multiple. I don't know if they're going to do plain Jane and frag and others, and maybe not. But I think the surveys will you'll be able to pick which one you want. I hope that you enjoyed this one. If you do have any questions about this, it is going to be a little bit limited since it's a pass around. I can't take this apart or anything like that, but check out the schematic on the Kickstarter page because they do have a blowout that explains it, and it's very interesting if you're into that sort of thing. Thank you for watching to this point. Helps the algorithm. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to follow along. Thank you to the channel members out there. I really appreciate all the support. I love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic week. And until next time, peace.